Hello, everybody. Are you ready to continue our story about the Avengers versus the Space Phantom? Well, I am, so let's go. The last time we looked at the Avengers, we were introduced to the Space Phantom. He's from outer space, and now that he's on Earth, he can send anyone he wants to limbo while he takes on the form of that person as well as that person's powers. So this is what has happened to the Hulk. The Hulk is out in limbo, but the Space Phantom has assumed the green, strong body of the Hulk. And in this form, he's attacking Iron Man. Iron Man doesn't know it's the Space Phantom. He thinks it's really the Hulk. So the last time we saw Iron Man, there he was flying in the air to meet the Hulk, who was leaping with his great power. All right, Iron Man is saying, I always thought we had made a mistake allowing you to join the Avengers, and now I'm sure of it. And so the Space Phantom has managed to turn the Avengers against each other. What's going to happen next? Well, Iron Man grabs the wrist of the Phantom Hulk, and as the editor says, a battle can be won by more than strength. Seizing Hulk's ponderous hand in his own mighty grip, Iron Man sends a low voltage electric charge out through his amazing transistor powered fingers. And while the real Hulk would have endured the pain and fought back in a paroxysm of savage fury, the Space Phantom possesses neither his courage nor his almost limitless endurance. And so he plunges to the ground where he creates rubble from the strength of his fall, and he thinks he's too strong. I've got to escape. So Iron Man lands and he thinks, I don't understand. That electric charge wasn't powerful enough to cause the Hulk to flee in panic that way, and yet. And so the Space Phantom thinks, I'll imitate the shape of that small flying insect. All right, so as the Space Phantom becomes an insect that Iron Man can't see, at the same time, the Hulk now reappears, but of course, he knows nothing of what has gone on. And so, as the Space Phantom instantaneously transforms himself into a tiny wasp, the real Hulk reappears from limbo. But so swift has the change been that Iron Man is unaware of it, and he believes himself still to be fighting the same foe. And so Iron Man thinks, I've got to find a way to knock him out and bring him to the Avengers. Iron Man quickly attaches an expanding device to his amazing costume, taken from his built-in chest plate accessory compartment. So he lengthens his arm and attaches a hammer to the end of it. Click. And he thinks this should be just the thing to do the trick, with apologies to Thor. And so he's created his arm to look like Thor's hammer. Strange though, this time the Hulk doesn't look fearful. Well, I think not. This is the real Hulk. But at that very moment, Rick Jones has reached the nearest member of his nationwide teen brigade and immediately goes into action. And so this fellow says, Rick, are you really going to call Giant Man? Yeah, says Rick, if you'll clam up so I can find the right wavelength. Let's see now. And the other fellow says, hey, Ma, Pa, come on in here. Rick is calling Giant Man. Hurry, don't miss it. Rick thinks, oh great, the Avengers are in deadly danger, and that lame brain thinks this is a three-ring circus. Calling Giant Man, calling Giant Man. Do you read me, Giant Man? An alien called the Space Phantom is impersonating the Hulk. Need your help. And so here comes the fella's ma and pa. Say, this is thrilling. Wait till I tell the girls at my sewing circle. And in the lab of the astonishing Henry Pym, well, Henry Pym, who is Giant Man, gets the message. It sounds serious, Jan. Let's go. He called Giant Man rather than Ant-Man, so it must be a top priority emergency as Hank Pym assumes his giant persona. And Janet says, while you doubled your size, I'll become wasp size. Here goes. And so, as the wasp balances on Giant Man's finger, she says, did anyone tell you that you have the most deliciously blue eyes, Henry Pym? Well, Henry says, be serious, little one. I have a feeling we've got a strange and dangerous task ahead of us. Minutes later, we find Giant Man and the Wasp out on the freeway. And there's a car, and the passenger says, John, look, a giant. Holy smoke, says John, and in a costume yet. And Wasp says, whee, I feel like a hitchhiker. What are they doing? I don't know. So, Giant Man catches up with Iron Man and says, hold it. Iron Man is swinging his hammer, and he says, ducking out of the way won't help you. Wait till my next swing. Hulk says, enjoy yourself while you can, Rustpot, when I get my hands on you. And Giant Man says, take it easy, little fella. Don't do anything you'll regret in the morning. And so he grabs Iron Man's hammer. And Iron Man says, Giant Man, let go, you oversized clown. Hulk's had this coming for a long time. And then Giant Man puts out his hand and yeah, I'm having trouble today. He puts out his hand on Hulk's head, and Hulk says, stay out of this here. Big as you are, I can still demolish you and Iron Man too. Listen to me, both of you. This is insane. We have no reason to fight amongst ourselves. What's happening to us? Iron Man says, you're right. We're making fools of ourselves. We're acting like kids. And the Wasp says, Giant Man, I can sense an evil presence here. Be careful. And remember, the Space Phantom is still present. He's flying around in the form of a real wasp. And so, Hulk says, you got off pretty easy that time, Shellhead, but if you ever cross me again... Quiet, you brainless gargoyle, says Iron Man. Didn't you hear the Wasp? She's hypersensitive to certain stimuli, and she senses trouble. And sure enough, here comes the Wasp, which is really the Space Phantom. The Wasp's instincts, half female intuition, half insect supersense, proved to be right, for minutes later. The Phantom Wasp thinks, Giant Man's partner, what a stroke of luck for me. And the Wasp says, it's a wasp attacking me. But that's impossible unless it's not a genuine wasp. A few hundred yards away, Giant Man's new amazing cybernetic helmet picks up the impassioned impulses of the Wasp's frantic battle, and he realizes the Wasp is in danger. And so we can see a cutaway diagram of the wafer-thin cybernetic helmet that's built into Giant Man's mask. The cybernetic impulses come from the direction of Anthony Stark's factory just across Grand Central Parkway. Follow me. And look, Giant Man runs with the giant stride of his long legs. And Iron Man thinks he doesn't suspect that I am really Anthony Stark. Once inside the factory, I'll be fighting on my home grounds. And look, Iron Man is rolling on his transistorized roller skates. Ha, well, that's fun. And Hulk is just leaping along. Here we are, says Iron Man, but everything seems normal. And Iron Man looks around the corner. Through this door, the impulses are getting stronger. Hulk says, why bother with doors? I'd rather tear the walls apart. Guided to the Wasp by his sensitive helmet, the Giant Man doesn't notice an astonishing change taking place behind him. As the Space Phantom resumes his form, he thinks, I no longer need my wasp shape. I see a far better one to borrow. Meanwhile, Giant Man sees the Wasp and he says, Jan, thank heaven you're safe. But she says, don't worry about me. Look behind you, quick. Before the 12-foot-high adventurer can turn around, the Space Phantom has taken his identity, causing the real Giant Man to be sent instantaneously into limbo. And the Space Phantom says, farewell, Giant Man. Now I, the Space Phantom, shall continue where I left off. And Giant Man, as he falls back, he says, I'm whirling into another dimension, a shadowy, silent world. And then the Phantom Giant Man says, thank you, female human, for acting as a decoy for me. And she says, I saw what happened. You're not Giant Man. You've taken his form somehow, but you're not him. I saw it too, says the Hulk. I don't know how you took over Giant Man's body, but that must be what happened to me too. So, says the Phantom Giant Man, my secret is out. Well, no matter. I realize now that I have no need for secrecy. But look, he's turned his hand into a fist. I wonder if he's still holding the Wasp. Well, he then lets her go and he says, begone, Wasp. I have more important victims to slay. And he brings down his other fist, trying to catch the Hulk unawares. He says, once I have destroyed the Avengers, all of Earth will tremble before the power of the Space Phantom. Yeah, says Hulk. I don't think he's trembling. Well, you forgot one thing. You took the biggest body you could find, but not the strongest. The Hulk is more powerful than a dozen giant men. And so we see the strength of the Hulk as he lifts the Phantom Giant Man up into the air. The Phantom says, for this indignity, I will slay you slowly. The Wasp flies along and she says, I've got to find help. If only I can find Thor. And the Hulk tosses Giant Man and says, this is only a sample of what you'll get unless you bring back the real Giant Man. See? Wow. But moving with unexpected speed, the alien in the double-sized human body drives Anthony Stark's latest invention, a tank-like moon tractor, straight toward the waiting Hulk. Boy, look how Giant Man is shoving that tractor just like it's a Lego toy. He says, you dare threaten the Space Phantom? Yeah, I dare, says the Hulk, who gets on his back and he uses his powerful feet to stop the progress of the tractor. And then wham, he shoves it backward. and almost straight into Iron Man, who says, "My moon vehicle, Giant Man, what's going on?" Well, the space giant man says, "Ha, I am agile enough to leap to safety, but Iron Man is not." But in one split second, Iron Man presses a stud on his chest control panel, causing his iron suit to become rigid and magnetizing his iron boots solidly to the floor. Thump! He stops the moon tractor. He does get knocked backwards, and as the Phantom Giant Man reaches out, he says, "So, it seems that each of you Avengers is more powerful than I had expected, but no matter, even your combined might is not great enough to save you from the Space Phantom." So he reaches out toward Iron Man, and he makes the switch. So Iron Man is swept into limbo, and the Phantom says, "The others approach. I must act quickly. I shall now take Iron Man's form. Neither the Hulk or Giant Man will suspect till it's too late." As the Space Phantom suddenly assumes the identity of Iron Man, the real Giant Man dramatically reappears, and he thinks, "I'm back from limbo, but how can we ever defeat the quick-changing Space Phantom?" And so the Space Phantom now is taking on Iron Man's form. "Come on, Giant Man," says the Hulk. "Don't just stand there. He turned himself into Iron Man. I saw him. Grab him before he can change again." And as the battle continues in Stark's Long Island factory, the Wasp desperately seeks help from the one remaining member of the Avengers. As she flies along, she remembers, "We were told to call Dr. Don Blake when we wanted Thor. He knows how to contact him. I'm in luck. There's Blake now." And so she flies in and she sees the very small Dr. Don Blake, and he says, "The Wasp." The Wasp picks up a pencil and writes, "Trouble at Stark Factory. Need Thor." And so Dr. Blake says, "Wait outside in the reception room while I send for Thor." "Will do, Doc," says the Wasp. And then she thinks, he'd be real dreamy if he was a little huskier. But he's about to become husky. Satisfied that he is safe from prying eyes, the lame, mild-looking doctor stamps his walking stick once upon the floor, and then, wham! We now see the mighty Thor with his hammer. A strong, commanding voice rings out into the next room as the Wasp returns. "Who summons the god of thunder?" "I, the Wasp." Then, after quickly telling her story, she flies along on her wings, but Thor flies along with his mighty hammer. On to the factory of Tony Stark. Death to the Space Phantom. And the Wasp thinks he sounds a little like a burlesque of a comic hero in Mad Magazine, but with those shoulders, those eyes. Who cares how corny he talks? The Wasp, she's so silly. And so now here comes the Thor, and he sees what's going on. Iron Man using his transistor-powered jet stream discs to keep the Hulk and Giant Man at bay. He must be the Space Phantom. And Hulk is saying those air jets have to run out of steam sooner or later. And when they do, and Giant Man says, "Easy, Hulk, here comes Thor. Now the gang's all here." And the Wasp thinks, "I'm getting tired of flying around like Peter Pan's little Tinkerbell. It's time I did something, and I know just the thing to do. I'm too small for the Space Phantom to notice, so I'll just slip under his jet discs while the discs in his hand are pouring out all that air." and she pulls some wires. She says, there, I snipped the main control cable. And all of a sudden, the jet discs aren't working. Phantom Iron Man says, my jet disc, it's been tampered with. And Thor swings his hammer. Once the Space Phantom is defeated, we'll find a way to return the real Iron Man. But Iron Man's electronic warning device alerts the Space Phantom at the last split second, and he turns around and he sees Thor's hammer. I'll turn my high-intensity magnetic repulsor on it. And he sends it soaring back toward Thor. Thor says, I have lost the element of surprise. He's prepared for me. And Phantom Iron Man says, now the battle reaches its final phase. Once I have vanquished you, Thor, all of Earth will feel the fury of the attack by the phantoms from space. So evidently he's preparing the way for an invasion of space phantoms. Not so, thou braggart. Earth is under my protection. This I have pledged with my life. And so he pounds his hammer upon the ground. Behold, how the fury of the storm is mine to command. See how the very elements obey my will. And he brings down rain and lightning. And the Space Phantom realizes he pounded that hammer of his, and this thunderstorm started. I can feel the rain affecting my iron armor, so it's going to make it rust. That's not good. There, you are helpless now, says Thor, unable to move, for the torrential rain has rusted you completely. The Phantom Iron Man says, such overconfidence will cause your downfall, the same as it did the others. And the Space Phantom says, I do not need the power to move, not when I can imitate anyone I choose. And so for the final indignity to you, I choose your body, Thor, and I sentence you now to limbo. But no sooner are the words spoken than the totally unexpected occurs. No, this is impossible, says the Space Phantom. I'm going to limbo instead of you. But how? And Thor says, your power only affects humans, but I am the god of thunder. And so look, the Space Phantom himself is being swept into limbo, and he now is defeated. As the Space Phantom's power backfires against him, the real Iron Man returns from limbo, having been replaced by the awesome alien himself. And Iron Man says, I'm back. And Thor announces, it is ended, Iron Man. We have won. But what happens when the Space Phantom returns? And Giant Man says, he's not likely to. He'll have to remain in limbo until someone comes to replace him. Hulk says, that means he stays there forever. And Thor says, it is strange. For most of our battle, we thought we were fighting each other. We never suspected. And Hulk says, I never suspected how much each of you hate me. Deep down, I could tell by the way you fought me, by the remarks you made. Well, I don't need any of you. I'm still the Hulk. I'm still the strongest thing walking the earth. And whatever I do from now on, I do alone. And look, he leaps up into the air and he leaves. He's leaving the Avengers. Wasp says, thank heavens he's leaving. He terrified me. Giant Man agrees. Perhaps he did, Wasp, but he'll be more dangerous than ever now. And Thor says, without the Avengers to keep him in check, what will he do next? And that is a very important question. Next issue, the Hulk teams up with one of your favorite super characters to battle the Avengers. in another Marvel epic. Remember, the stories, the art, the super characters you've always wanted are here at last in this, the long-awaited Marvel Age of Comics. All right, so let's look and see who is one of our favorite super characters who's going to join with the Hulk. It's the Submariner. All right, and this is destined to be one of the most talked about epics ever presented. All right, and here's the front cover. The Hulk and Submariner teamed up to fight against Thor, Iron Man, Giant Man, and the Wasp. Yes, this is destined to be one of the greatest battles of all time. And Papa will be back to tell you that very story. All right? I hope you're enjoying the Avengers. I sure am. One of my favorite groups. I love y'all very much. Bye-bye now.